Alrighty, so welcome to the teacher information session for the New Jersey Student Climate Challenge. I am Rosalie Morillo. I am the program manager at Sustainable Jersey. I work specifically with schools' content and special projects, including the digital school program. So we are housed at the Sustainability Institute at TCNJ, which we are also most people know us as Sustainable Jersey, but we are located at TCNJ. So here is my contact. If you ever have any questions that have anything to do with the climate challenge or Sustainable Jersey, please do not hesitate to contact me. So for today's agenda, we are just going to review the climate challenge. We're going to talk about the submission evaluation rubric and highlight resources available for teachers and for students. And if you have any additional questions or ideas, we can talk about them at the end of the session, or if you have a pressing question, feel free to write in the chat box for me to talk about later, or at the moment if I can see in the chat box. All right. So the New Jersey Student Climate Challenge, just a quick question. Has anybody here already participated in the Student Climate Challenge or has heard of it before? Please, if you want, just mention it in the chat box. But this is our 4th year launching the program. The challenge is a great way for students to get involved with the issues of climate change and for them to become climate leaders within their school and their community. So the great thing is that the challenge is free. It's specifically for students grades 6 to 12. Teachers register their class in the club to participate. However, this is a student-led project. Teachers are more considered facilitators as opposed to, actually participating in the project. So under the teacher's mentorship, it can be a team of 2 to 12 students, and they need to complete either a school or community project that addresses a cause or impact of climate change. Oh, great. So one person hasn't participated in the challenge, so welcome for first timer. And Jersey City did participate, but welcome back. So thank you for joining again. And so going back to the rules and the overview of the project, of the challenge, each team has to create a digital story about their project, kind of giving us the rundown of what they did, their thought process, how it connects to climate change, etc. And the date to submit that is on April 9th of 2025. So there are first, second, and third place winners for both middle and high school. They don't compete with one another. So there is a category specifically for middle school and a category specifically for high school students. So there's first, second, and third winners for middle school and first, second, and third winners for high school. And winners of the challenge will get invited to join an awards ceremony that is hosted by First Lady Tammy Murphy at the Governor's Mansion in Princeton. So school winners can receive grants to advance their climate education initiatives ranging to from $2,500 to $500. Do you have any questions so far? No, I'm going to continue. So why is the challenge important? Why even take the challenge? So education is one of the most powerful tools and a critical force in preparing the generation to address climate change. We're seeing a lot more of students in this generation that they're aware of the issues of climate change, and they're getting more, they're having more questions about it and ways to kind of think of solutions. And climate anxiety is an issue that we're seeing a lot more in students because they're more aware about the future of our environment and what's happening in terms of climate change. So we're trying to really provide an outlet for students to engage in project-based learning and meaningful experiences outside the classroom, and to really just become part of the solution. So hence solution-based approach, which is empowering these students rather than them just getting more anxious about the situation. So the great thing about this project also is it can be connected with unit studies. It can be connected with after-school activities or just personal projects for students to do within their community or school. So, and also this can align with the New Jersey Student learning standards for climate change education, as this is a newer mandate for schools to be teaching about climate change in the classroom. So when we talk about eligible projects, we want to think about the projects being able to impact a school or the community. We want it to have a tangible outcome. So whether they're changing their physical environment, are they reducing climate change and the causing factors? Are they increasing awareness of climate change or the need for behavior changes? Civic engagement, any type of advocacy, and that can look in like many different there's many different examples for advocacy. So there's been students who have petitions to their school board about having meatless Mondays, or going to the city council to talk about more about having more trees in their community. And they can also do something in a form of research and funding proposals. So Sustainable Jersey has grants that are available, 2 cycles every year. And if students wanted to fill out a grant proposal for a project within their school, that can be a way of becoming more advocate in their classroom and in their school, but it can be submitted as a project as well, that they are writing these grants for their school. So when we think about climate change and making the connection to climate change, that is very crucial in this project. While students can do projects that are like cleanups and things like that, they need to make a clear connection to how it's connected to the cause or impact of climate change. So we think about the human activity, which is causes, right? That contributes to the increased concentration of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. So for example, if we think about food waste, right? The more that we contribute to food waste, it causes to be thrown out into the landfill, which causes more greenhouse gases and methane into the atmosphere. So how can we find ways to mitigate the increased concentration of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere? That can be something that students are considering. So maybe they want to do a food waste audit. Maybe they want to learn how to compost. So because those greenhouse gases are contributing to climate change, is causing negative effects. So we want to think about ways that we can these projects can address mitigating the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, or somehow can we think of ways of adaptation for taking for dealing with the negative impacts of climate change. So examples of this can be when we think about human activities. On this side in blue, they cause the increase of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. Think about fossil fuel and the use of energy and heat. That is a human activity that is causing the increased I feel like I'm repeating myself and causing the increased concentrations. So thinking about mitigation strategies, so increasing energy efficiency or energy conservation, or promoting renewable gas and resources. Thinking about, I'm going to skip around because we don't have to read through each and every one of these, but deforestation, cutting down all the trees, that is a human activity that is that's harmful to increases the issues of climate change. So how can we mitigate those strategies? Maybe doing more tree planting, considering native plants and gardens, or increasing recycled paper use. So any of these things can be examples of how to mitigate climate change. And when we think about adaptation strategies, we think about severe weather and heavy rain events. So this is a climate change impact. And adaptations can be planting rain gardens, increasing green infrastructure and green surfaces. If we want to think about drought and heat waves, increasing water conservation efforts, or installing rain barrels. When we want to talk about temperature rise and changing habits, protecting the habitats and threatened species. So when they're considering their projects, they can think about what are the impacts what are the causes, and what are the strategies that we're gonna work towards in our project to come to more of a solution. So a great thing that schools and the students should be thinking about is the resources that are available to them in the community or the communities around them. So there are a lot of options to collaborate with um, the municipality, your town, your green team in your town, or even just universities and nonprofit organizations in the area. So consider the municipalities and the boards of commissions, consider any nonprofits around schools, universities, and residents businesses, and that can be partnerships in this program. We really, really encourage that because a lot of these organizations love to see student involvement. So having them connected would be a great way of elevating your project. Okay. So, and a couple of resources that we have in even just considering sustainable Jersey, we have a framework where we provide schools with the actionable steps towards becoming more sustainable. And specifically, food waste was a really popular thing to talk about in last year's climate challenge. But some of the actions that we have in our program can be used as projects for the climate challenge. So we have a campaign to reduce school waste, food recovery, and shared tables. And each one of these actions give a detailed description of how to complete these actions. And if a if a student group wanted to take one of these options and read through it and kind of develop the project around one of these actions, that would be a great idea to do if you are kind of stuck on what you should or can do. So moving on to digital storytelling. Before I continue, does anybody have any questions? You're still good? All right. So digital storytelling. So to be honest, most of the students kind of know already how to create a reel or a video, since most of your students are probably really involved in TikTok and Instagram. They are better at this than you think. So the part that they need the most help with is actually organizing the story. So just having this for students to consider is making the connection on emotional level when they're telling their story, giving us a background of like their school or giving us a background about their community to kind of help us understand um, why they picked the project that they picked, right? How does it connect with the students and how does it connect with their community? Um, the story should communicate the perspectives of the students and really show a lot more collaboration in the stories and the characters. And obviously, these stories are not characters like fictionally. The students are the characters, or the people they engage with are the characters, and what they're doing and their points of views. We want to make sure that all those things are being represented. So here's the rubric that where we evaluate the the videos or the digital stories. So we have it divided in four criterias, pieces of criteria. Um, we split it up with the video criteria and then the written component. So the climate challenge does have a written component that goes along with whatever they submit for their video. So when we're looking at the video, the digital story, we are looking that it accurately outlines how the project addresses a cause or impact of climate change and that it's supported by credible sources. We're not asking for them to submit a bibliography, but we want to make sure that the science is correct. So when they are presenting the project, we want to make sure that it's very organized and saying, this is our community, this is the issue that we discovered in connection to climate change. Here's what we're doing. This is what we did. You can talk about the challenges that they went through, and then the end result. What did they learn? So we want to see that it's very organized in the sense of showing how what they did really connects to climate change. And that goes also with the narrative flow. Is it creative? Is it well organized? And does it effectively engage with the audience with a very clear purpose? It's very easy for students, if they're not planning their story, to jump around in different areas. And then it's hard to follow. So we want to make sure that it really is it's very clear and the logically progressing throughout the narrative, so that we understand all the steps that the students went through. So with the written component, we want to make sure that the writing of the project and the rationale, like, clearly is provides a detailed summary of the project. And this summary of the project should match what is presented in the actual video that is submitted. And again, we repeat that the project has a connection to the causes and impacts of climate change. We've put this several times throughout the unit, throughout the rubric, because we weren't seeing in previous projects that being clearly represented in the submissions. So that's something that we really, really want to emphasize. And again, using credible evidence. And the last thing is team reflection. So students are offering thoughtful reflections. They're explaining how their knowledge of climate change has increased or deepened, that they're identifying any obstacles that they faced, they overcame, and even considering what they would have done differently if they looking back, or if they were to do a project like this again. Okay. So it's out of 60 points. We did weigh the video a little bit more than the writing components. So I wanted to show you some examples of last year's winners. So we have the Highland Park Green Team. So they were the high school team that won. So I'm going to show you that video. And then I'm going to show you the Wild Over Worms, which is from Green Books Middle School. 1 second while I pull it up. So this is Highland Park High School, and these are all available on our website as well. If you wanted to see all of the winners from last year and previous years, feel free to look. I'll drop the URL in the chat so that you can also see where that is. And feel free to show your students as well to get more ideas. So I'm going to play this now. Please let me know if you can hear it.
I'm Isaac Backer. I'm Callum Carl.
And I'm Sophie Hedner.
And we're the Highland Park Green Team. We are all students at Highland Park High School who are very passionate about climate justice in our community. Recently, climate studies have been emphasized in our school and many other schools across New Jersey. Although this is a good thing, it has caused many kids to be stressed about the future. When we came across this challenge, we immediately saw it as an opportunity to prove to ourselves and our peers that we can take control of the future and make a meaningful change.
While brainstorming solutions to climate-related issues, something that came up unexpectedly often was food waste. Food waste is a huge contributor to climate change that is barely ever talked about. Not only is wasted food a lost meal that someone experiencing food insecurity could have eaten, it also accounts for nearly 10% of greenhouse gas emissions globally.
And learning how huge of an impact food waste had on the environment, we knew we had to take action. We were intrigued to know how much food waste our community produced and eager to find a solution to this problem. The first thing that came to mind was composting.
Our school already had a compost bin and a garden in need of nutrient-rich soil, but people rarely ever composted. We started walking around during lunch with buckets and encouraging our peers to give us any compost they had. All of these scraps were then put in the compost bin so we will have fresh soil in time for gardening season.
Although starting up our school's composting program was a huge success, and we were amazed to see how much food waste would have otherwise gone into landfills, we wanted to do something bigger that would impact more of our community.
While doing research on food waste, we came across Sustainable Jersey's toolkit for food waste and saw the wasted food scale. This scale says that although compost is great, donating or upcycling any leftover food is the best and most sustainable way to eliminate waste.
But how are we going to collect enough leftover food to make an impact? At our town farmers market. Highland Park Farmers Market is a busy market that takes place every Friday, and the whole town enjoys the fresh produce and meals offered here.
We had the idea to donate food to the Global Grace Cafe. This cafe hires local refugee families to cook their national dishes for the community. The cafe is a pay-what-you-wish model, so if you can't afford a meal, you will still be provided with one, and all proceeds go to charitable causes. Climate change is a major cause of the global refugee crisis, so it's particularly gratifying that our project is both helping refugees and lowering greenhouse gas emissions.
We started showing up to the market every Friday about 10 minutes before closing. We walk around with the wagon and ask if any vendors have untouched food that they will not be able to sell later on or bring back with them.
The program grew quickly, and we started collecting so much we could not fit it all in one wagon. This project has been an inspiring experience for all of us. It has helped us understand we are not powerless, and positive futures are within our power.
Thanks for watching, and remember,
don't waste, let others have a taste.
So that was an example of last year's winners, and it was really great because while they did a attempt to do a composting project, they also connected it with community activism in that sense. So they were collecting from their community and making sure that it was going towards the refugee food kitchen. So I thought that was a really great example for that. So here's our next example for our middle school project. And this is a really special one. It's one of my favorites. It is this project was done with a special needs class, and I think that's really important to kind of also show that anyone can actually participate in this program. So here is Wild Over Worms.
With our green team, we were really hoping for two types of climate change: environmental and personal. We have students here with very diverse abilities, and we wanted to find opportunities to build social relationships around a shared interest.
We decided to research how to start gardening. We were surprised to learn that food production is responsible for about 1/4 of the world's greenhouse gas emissions. Most of it is due to fossil fuels that are used when producing and transporting synthetic fertilizers and pesticides.
Synthetic fertilizers are primarily based on nitrogen, which create nitrous oxide when they break down. Nitrous oxide is 300 times more potent than CO2 emissions, and these chemical fertilizers only feed the plants, not the soil. The production of synthetic pesticides is very energy intensive and can emit even more greenhouse gases than the fertilizers.
And everyone knows chemicals are not safe for kids. So we looked up how to grow an organic garden. Fresh organic food tastes better and it is better for the environment. So now what? It turns out it all starts with healthy soil.
Soil is an ecosystem within an ecosystem. Healthy soil stores away CO2. It holds more water, helps plants thrive, and makes the land more resilient to climate change effects. It also contains many microorganisms, fungi, bacteria, minerals, and worms.
Love worms. I love watching the worms toil the soil.
Our soil is not so healthy, so we looked for some solutions. We learned that compost is a key ingredient to organic farming. Adding compost improves the soil's nutrients and releases them at a slow and steady pace.
Composting is the natural process of recycling organic matter, such as leaves and food scraps, into good fertilizer. This process provides an ideal environment for bacteria, fungi, and other decomposing organisms, such as worms and bugs.
We need more worms!
It also cuts down on food waste.
Speaking of food waste, did you know that the U.S. produces more than 80 million tons of food waste each year? That's more than 1/3 of all food produced. It is well over $400 billion in food wasted every year.
We could buy a lot of worms!
And worms are superheroes at making compost. They can break down food waste in 3 to 4 weeks. As the worms eat the garbage, they recycle nutrients, filter pollutants, and leave us worm casting.
That's worm poop.
which contains lots of microbes, bacteria, fungi, and humic acid that helps plants absorb nutrients better.
So we set up our own worm farm. Worms also produce CO2, as do all living things, but the worm mucus helps release it back slowly into the natural carbon cycle. Moreover, when food waste gets transported to the landfill, we burn fossil fuels in the process. Even worse, in the landfill, the packed waste does not get oxygen. That's called anaerobic decomposition. So when the food waste breaks down, it actually produces methane gas as a byproduct. That stuff is 25 to 85 times more potent than CO2 emissions.
We collect the food waste in the cafeteria. I do my job every day. I feed the worms every day.
We collect the compost and add it to our soil when we plant the garden. We need to keep the worms moist, so when we water them, we drain the worm juice and use it to water our plants. We grow food that we love, and we work together to tend the garden, to plant and to harvest. My favorite thing is preparing and eating the food, but we also plant flowers, which makes our school more beautiful.
It is so fun to see different things grow, and our friendships are growing too. We can't wait to see this year's garden harvest. But in our green team, we harvest a lot more than food to eat.
5 words.
I'm sorry. All right. So that was Wild Over Worms from Greensbrook Middle School. So both of these projects were really great. And we really consider every aspect of the school and community that is presenting their project. Because not every school has the same needs, have the same have the access to the same resources. So all those things are considered while we're reviewing these videos. So we were supposed to have some examples of people coming in, but to talk about their project from the past, like other educators, but they weren't able to make it. But I did have a video of two of the students that won second place last year that talked about the climate challenge and what that experience was like for them. So I wanted to share that with you. And I will also, if you want this video, you can show this to your students as well to kind of get them more energized about the project. It's great for students to hear from other students.
My name is Patrick Watson. I'm from Manasquan and I go to Mast.
I'm Jeremy Londano. I'm from Howell and we go to Mast. Our project is Thriftwood, which is an in-school, on-campus thrift shop that we opened this past year.
We accepted donations from students and teachers alike and the community surrounding Mast. And so far it's been a great success. We've been donating all of our proceeds to save coastal wildlife, and they've been very appreciative of the donations that we've made and the donations that the students at our school have made. Throughout the year, we've been doing projects on different sustainable efforts. And one of our classmates, Abby, many of her projects surrounded a fast fashion and the issues surrounding the topic. And that's kind of where the idea stemmed from. And it's built into what it is today from kind of those projects.
All right. And so all the actions and decisions that we make, even now at a young age, have a lot of impacts for the future, some that we might have even realized. So when people go thrifting, even though they're doing it for just style, they may not realize the positive impacts that it has, and vice versa. The certain style choices and the certain like shopping choices that they make in their everyday lives might have impacts and carbon emissions that they're not even aware of. So we thought it was important just to get ahead of that and just start making sustainable actions a habit instead of just an active choice.
At the end of the day, our generation is the ones inheriting the planet. So we need to make sure that we have a good start where when we're young people making an effort to keep the environment the way it is and even make it better. So I thought it was important for us young people to get involved in something like this.
Yes, that was Thriftwood. They made a school thrift shop, and they even taught classes on how to upcycle their clothing and teaching kids how to sew, and so that they wouldn't throw away their clothes. So the most important thing from this project is what lessons the students are learning. I see message. Yeah, it's really great. So, and you'll be surprised a lot of the creative things that the students come up with on their own. So, we want the students to be involved and to be part of the solution. We want them to really focus on lessons that they're learning about climate change, to make those connections, that they have resources within the school and the community that they can use, and making sure that their project is really tangible, that they're coming up with an outcome, something that they're actually that's actionable. Because in the past we've received submissions that were PSAs. And while that is a great thing to do, it could be a portion of the project, maybe part of the campaign, but they need to do something actionable. Like if they're going to do a PSA about anti-idling and how you should turn off your car, maybe they do a video, but then afterwards they actually petition outside, or they create some kind of class, or they do something actionable that connects with the PSA. And yeah, just have students get really personal about their story. It's really important that we connect with the students and really learn about their community and their voices. So I also wanted to share resources that we have available. We created a Google Drive for you to look at all the documents that you need. So when it comes down to submission, these are all the documents that you need for submission. So we have the rubric here. We have the quick start guide. So this is something that you can give to your students. It gives you like 1 to 2 pages rundown of everything that you need, which is, why get involved, how to get involved. This is similar to what I reviewed in this presentation. What is an climate action project, and thinking about what it's not, right? So as they're brainstorming, you can give them this worksheet. And then these are also connected to the resources that I'm currently showing you. And then we have the official rules. This is something you want to also review with your students. And then when you do a submission, when you do finally have your students submit, they need to have this also filled out, a student roster form, which is you have all the students' names, their grades, their email address, and their parents' email address. Okay, moving back to the other folder, we have the brainstorming sheets. So we have graphic organizers to help your students brainstorm, but we also have different resources that are available for project planning and implementation. So thinking about when I mentioned that it's really important to get connected to organizations, here's a list of organizations all throughout New Jersey. If you go even to Rutgers, you can go according to the city and the county and just look through them with your students to see what county think you can organize it like that. And then see what organizations are around and have students reach out. That can be part of their project where they're actually looking for those connections. So another thing that we have here is if you want to connect and think about the climate challenge as a summative project within your classroom, perhaps there's some lessons that you want to do ahead of time. So if you want to connect it in the classroom, we have available, if you haven't heard so already, the Climate Education Hub, where there's lessons based off of the grade level, where you can also think about subject areas. Let's say you have something in English and you want to talk about food and climate change, right? So if you're doing something on food waste, perhaps this is a unit that you might want to incorporate into your classroom if it would open. And they have all lessons already curated for you. And all these lessons are also able to be changed according to what you need. So you'll see something here, you can download it and then change the lesson to fit your classroom needs. So other things that are also available, you have the Department of Education have resources, Audubon, Subject to Climate, Rutgers. So these are all lesson plans that can be connected to your classroom that could build prior knowledge for this activity. And then we also have graphic organizers. So when I was mentioning about the Sustainable Jersey actions, here are all the actions that are labeled in different areas. So we have food and nutrition, energy efficiency, and it describes what the project is. And maybe they can start planning what they may want to do. If they want to focus on anti-addling, here is what the action talks about. And then what are the plans that students want to take in order to approach that as their project. We also have ways for them to pre-plan. So what is the problems that they're seeing in their school and the community? What are the options that they can take to move towards a solution? So all of these great options, a flow chart, and a climate action plan. So what's the goal? When do they want to start? They can have a little part where they kind of color in their progress. So these are all just really great graphic organizers for students to consider, whatever works for you as a teacher. And then we also have the digital story planning. This is also very important if you're not familiar with how to teach digital stories. Again, students might know more than you at this point, but these are just still also options for you to consider. So here are different editing softwares that are free. Canva currently has an editing software as well, but most students probably are just comfortable with using things like TikTok or Instagram to edit their videos. And even I think most iPhones also have video editing abilities. And then there's things about how to make an easy way to make a video. We also have guides for digital storytelling. So here are a whole bunch of YouTube videos or examples of ways to do a video, and more in the narrative sense, not just kind of editing abilities. And here are all the previous winners from 2003, and then other examples from other organizations. And again, this is your choice. If you want to talk about digital storytelling, this talks about the storytelling process. It tells you the video requirements, how you should save your video. So all these different materials for you. And the last thing that's there's two more things. This I really love because I put this together. I used to teach a digital media class, and one thing that we talked about was coming up with a storyboard. So each frame, have students plan what they want and each shot, right? So this is their shot list. Let's say they want to start with them, cleaning up the garden. They should have an explanation of that. And then what's the title here? And then describing what's happening in the scene or any type of dialogue that they think should be said for this scene. And the more they plan this out, the better the actual video will come out. You don't want students to just go out and film a bunch of different things without having a proper plan, because then it's harder to edit as well. And here's another graphic organizer that I put together, 6 steps of a digital story making, thinking about brainstorming, and this is something that you can incorporate into a lesson when talking about narratives and creating narratives, but in a digital way. Okay. Do you have any questions? All right, so I went over this a little bit when we talked about the resources available in the Climate Education Hub. They have units and lesson plans are ready for you. Also, if you're kind of uncomfortable with talking about climate change because you don't feel you don't feel very comfortable in having that background knowledge in climate change, over here in the professional learning, there is a great free professional learning video that has step-by-step of talking about what climate change is and how to address it in the classroom. So we currently have a grant cycle that's open. Remember, I mentioned that grants and having students complete a grant or a submit for a grant can be part of a project. So the current grant cycle that we have open is PSNG. They have $2,000 and $10,000 grants available that can help continue the project that you guys are working on in your classroom or in your school and community. The applications are due in March. So please feel free, if you have any other questions, you can reach out to me, but this QR code will send you straight to the website that talks about the grants cycle. Okay. So again, please, if you haven't registered, register. It doesn't automatically commit you that you have to submit a project. We would love for you to still submit a project, but if you just want to register and you're not sure, you want to try, that's okay too. It doesn't automatically make it that you have to submit a project. So again, it's free, there's no obligation. And any work that you guys are doing and the climate challenge, let's say if your students are doing clips or doing pictures and you have a social media at your school, please hashtag the New Jersey Student Climate Challenge, or you can tag Sustainable Jersey, and we would love to repost your work. So if you don't have any, does anybody have any questions before we sign off? We're a little bit early, so feel free to ask me any questions about the project or your project. Maybe you guys have ideas of things that you may want to do already. I'm going to stop sharing my screen in a second. Do you have any questions? Ideas? Great. I'm glad it was informative. And again, if you don't have any questions right now, but something comes up later on, feel free to email me. I will drop my email in the chat. And feel free to contact me anytime. Or if you wanted to have a more one-on-one session, wanted us to kind of like have more of a conversation of like ideas that you have, that's also okay. So but yes, please reach out. So thank you again for joining, and we hope to see your submissions in April. Have a great night.
Thank you, you as well.
Bye-bye.
Bye.